Very good morning to you, ladies in studio, and of course to our morning live, watchers or viewers. And of course, yes, like you correctly said, we are coming to you from downtown Johannesburg at the City Hall, and of course, the program will actually commence at 10 o'clock. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to deliver his eulogy, and like you correctly said, I mean, throughout these past 2 weeks, when the president had actually declared 7 days of mourning, we've seen various people, not only from her political party, but various former government officials paying their respects and a tribute to the giant tree that has fallen. Of course, you've mentioned there, she was the first National Assembly speaker, to be elected in a democratic South Africa. Not only that, Leanne, she was a journalist, and I mean, she was an editor of the Tanzanian newspaper called the Spearhead, and of course, the managing editor of the Standard. But I'm actually joined by a person who worked very closely with her in 1991 when she was the head of the ANC's research. I'm joined by none other than ANC NEC member Febe Potgieter. Thank you so much for joining us on SABC News, Febe. You were quite fond of Dr. Ginwala. I mean, just tell us what you remember of her and what lessons you've learned from her, especially as a young member of the ANC.
Good morning. Dr. Ginwala was one of the women activists that we as young people at the time in the early 90s met, who introduced a new dimension to gender struggles, because they came in from exile with an international and Pan-African perspective, but also with a profoundly feminist perspective. And she was head of the ANC research at the time, 1991, and she infused that activism into the policies that we were developing at the time, Ready to Govern, and then later the Reconstruction and Development Program. But also, if you remember, early 90, beginning of 1991, the process of rebuilding of the ANC Women's League, and she played a critical role in that. And then the broad movement that she was one of the founders of, which is with Dr. Brigelia Bam and others, which is the Women's National Coalition, which for the first time since the 1950s, the Federation of South African Women brought together women from across the political spectrum, from faith-based organizations, community-based organizations, to advocate for the inclusion of women in the negotiations, as well as for women's participation in the constitution making. And Dr. Frene Ginwala really was a leading light and a key mover of that process, working together with other women. And just her intellect really inspired us as younger women at the time, but also her forcefulness and clarity around those issues. During the time in 1990, she also published a very groundbreaking piece of research, which was, I think it was published in Agenda, looking at women's participation in the ANC between 1912 and 1943, when women for the first time got full membership of the ANC. What she did with that piece of research was to say that, for all of that 30 years, women didn't disappear. They were there, they struggled, and she named women Charlotte Matleke, Mina Soga, Josie Mpama, Liz Alexander, and named those women, and also brought to the fore the role that they played in South African history over the time. So throughout her life, she played a very critical role in, countering women's erasure from our history, but also focusing on the now issues of what it means to build a non-sexist South Africa.
Phoebe, we were just talking off air that you recently celebrated a 90th birthday before passing. Did she perhaps, share her views of the state of the ANC currently?
Of course, because one of the things that she remained towards the end was an activist. I mean, she started at a very young age, and she remained an activist towards the end. And I think that for her preoccupation was that the mission of the ANC has always been to serve the people and to unite the people. And we need to make sure that we get the ANC back to that. Even towards conference last year, she would call and say that, okay, what's happening with my membership? Why is my branch not visiting me? So towards the end, she was concerned about the state of South Africa, the state of women, and how do we make sure that we get the country back onto track of those promises in the Constitution that she played just such an important role in, the human rights perspective, socio-economic rights, but also third generation rights around the environment, LGBTQI. And Dr. Ginwala played a very critical role in making sure that those rights are on the agenda and in our Constitution, and towards the end, as she turned 90, asking the question to new generations and generations that came after her, what are you doing about that? And you have to make sure that we get back to our...
Thank you so much for your time. Of course, that was ANC NEC member Febe Potgieter just sharing her sentiments, about, Frene Ginwala, and of course experiences with her. She worked closely with her. She said that she was a woman who fought for women's emancipation and broke down barriers, and that was quite evidently, and in the fact that she opened up a previously racially, exclusive and male-dominated institution, that being, Parliament, to South Africa, when she took up her position as the first National Assembly Speaker. Of course, we will bring you rolling coverage of this memorial service coming here from downtown Johannesburg. We do expect to speak to a number of guests and, of course, bring you rolling coverage there where President Cyril Ramaphosa will deliver his eulogy. And, of course, just a reminder there to our Morning Live viewers that the program starts at 10 a.m. and is expected to finish around 12:01. With that said, Leanne, it's back to you in studio.
All right, Natasha, thanks very, very much. So giving us just a bit of a preview in terms of what to expect. 10 o'clock this morning, the eulogy being delivered by the President, and of course just talking to the rich, incredible history of the late Frene Ginwala, who certainly all of us have immense respect for, and has just, just meeting her was an absolute highlight, seeing her through her career, and the respect that she certainly demanded from those around her was incredible. I need to correct myself, however. As I was linking, I said that she was buried within the Muslim rites. Frene Ginwala, the late Frene Ginwala, was not Muslim. She was actually a part of the Parsi Indian community, but she was cremated, and it was a very quick and private cremation, but that's in accordance with the family's rights. But just a correction from my side.